Welcome to the Your Most Interesting Story podcast. My name's Rob, and each episode I intend to serve you up a big old piece of real-life pie as we hear about and dig into the most interesting thing that's happened to someone in their life. These are first-hand, true stories told by everyday people. This episode's guest nearly made a career out of peddling sarcasm and pissing off a witch along the way. You're about to enjoy Goldy's most interesting story.
In 1991, I graduated from art school with a degree in illustration, and I'd gotten this job teaching art in Spain, but I had to wait a year before it started. So I decided to move to the Bay Area for a year. So I drove cross country, got there, found a dirt cheap apartment. It's only $250 a month. I got a job as a waitress, and then I tried to get work as an illustrator.
So you graduate from college, you land the job teaching in Spain, and then you're moving to California. How excited were you at that time?
I was just really happy to move 3,000 miles away from my family in Connecticut, to be honest. They all ended up actually following me out to California, but, road trip across country, and then doing something different, just kind of getting away and exploring a new city. I was either that or stay at home, and that wasn't going to happen. So I had this giant portfolio. This was 1991. There was no internet. There was really no way to show your work except physically had to bring your work to the various agencies and magazines and drop off your portfolio. And my portfolio happened to be a vintage roller skate box, which weighed about 20 pounds with all my work in it. So it's lugging that around the city and not really having a lot of luck. I actually ended up getting a lot more work as a freelance writer.
As a writer? Really?
I'd always done both art and writing, and zines were really big at the time.
In the 1990s, zines were the DIY answer to mainstream magazines. Self-published and produced in small batches, they covered everything from music scenes to hobbies to social commentary. And while the internet has opened up much wider distribution opportunities, zines are still alive and well today.
I had a couple friends that were editors for various zines and magazines. My main topic was covering what was happening in San Francisco's alternative entertainment scene. For example, there was a poet named Danielle Hell, who was also a former stripper at the Mitchell Brothers O'Farrell Theater. She had this total Valley Girl voice. She was hilarious. And one of her poems was called, "I wanted to kill my boss, but his brother beat me to it."
Okay, this warrants a bit of an explanation. Mitchell Brothers O'Farrell Theater was a fixture in the 1990s adult entertainment scene in San Francisco. In 1991, owner Jim Mitchell fatally shot his brother Artie, the co-owner, and the apparent boss of the former stripper poet we just heard about. Jim was later acquitted of murder on the grounds of self-defense.
So I was at least making some money doing the freelance. So it was coming up on a year, getting ready to go to Madrid and wrap things up in the Bay Area. And they called about a month before I was supposed to go and said they ran out of money and they couldn't send me.
Bummer.
I was devastated. I didn't want to move back east, but I also didn't know what I was going to do in San Francisco because I was still waitressing. I basically felt like I was stuck in the Bay Area and I didn't know what to do next. Do I stay? I really liked the city, but it was also not the plan. So I started calling friends of mine, telling them what happened. And it just so happened that one of my really close friends from college offered to come out and be my roommate and stay with me while I figured it out. It was really unexpected because he grew up in Boston, loved New York. I kind of felt like that was where his life was, but I think he just wanted an adventure. Probably similar to the situation of mine, he wasn't exactly happy with where he was staying, didn't want to stay with his parents, and I needed a roommate, so he came out. And we both were just waitering, trying to get jobs with our illustration portfolios. And then one night he told me about his idea that he had for a mean-spirited greeting card company. So at this time, there was Hallmark and there was American Greetings. And then, every once in a while you'd come across these really corny cards. They're kind of humorous, but that was it. That was the whole market. This really hadn't been done. It was a pretty revolutionary idea. And that night, we started coming up with all kinds of ideas.
And so, Dirty Works, the name Goldy and her friend had decided to use for their brand new card company, was off the ground. A unique idea and an undeniably unique voice in what had predominantly been a conservative greeting card market.
It's very sarcastic, dry greetings. Just like you wouldn't expect to get a card from someone and open it up and see these. So just to give you an example, some of our most popular cards were, I want my stuff back. So imagine if you broke up with someone and you just needed to get your stuff back, you could send them a card. Another popular one was, I know it's important to you, but I don't want to meet your family. I heard that a lot, actually, from boyfriends. So that's how I came up from that. And then our number one birthday card was, you're horribly, horribly old. So just very, very dry, very sarcastic. Aubrey Plaza, if you think of her tone, it was very much that vibe. This is way before she was born, of course.
Maybe her parents were fans.
Yeah, I don't think I sent you this one, but one of them was, the luckiest people are the friends of freaks because they get to stare at them as much as they want. Anyway, we had loads of art from school that we actually couldn't sell, so we just slapped that on the cover.
So was the idea to write to the illustrations you had?
No, it was completely random. Completely random. It had nothing to do with what was on the front of the card. My partner was really excited about printing these unrecycled cardstock. It took a long time to source. It was really expensive, but it gave it kind of a cool look as well. Go down to the Kinko's. We were printing our cards and scoring them ourselves and staying up all night, cutting them out and folding them, making our own envelopes. That's how it took off. So now we had all these cards, right? We had to sell them. And I was used to going around the city with my portfolio, so I just did the same thing with these cards. I went to every independent bookstore, every toy store, every card shop, every gift shop, and just started asking people if they would sell our cards on consignment. And a lot of people did. They were just like, yeah, cool, why not? There's no obligation. They didn't have to buy them. And what happened was they just started selling. People thought they were so funny. They wouldn't send them to anyone because they were just too weird to send, to actually send. But they would collect them. So they would buy them all out. And soon I started getting calls for refills. After seeing them in stores, an agent reached out to us and she wanted to represent us. She was more like a local rep. I think she also repped some Archie McPhee. I don't know if you know Archie McPhee, but it was like that weird, alternative gift genre that was kind of emerging at the time.
Archie McPhee is not an actual person, but the name of a unique and quirky gift store that was founded in Seattle in 1983. During the early 1990s, their black and white mail-order catalogs offered an unusual selection of humorous gifts, like rubber chickens and whoopee cushions. This offbeat humor made them a popular choice for those seeking something a little bit different.
So she had a lot of weird gifty things. Very small shop. I think it was her and like two other people. But she was just really nice, and it was kind of like, oh, okay, cool. So she got us a booth at this annual gift show, which was really weird because it was like Hallmark and all these like really fancy, gift wrap and bows and and then there's this weird little card with a recycled paper with mean-spirited cards.
When you were at the trade show, did the Hallmark people come up to your booth and check out your cards?
Not that I know of. If they did, it might have been like a secret shopper kind of thing. But we got a lot of weird looks for sure. People would kind of come by like, oh, what's this? And like, put it down with a confused look. She got us picked up at even more stores. And I was still going to stores and trying to get them in there. So I'd go down to LA, or if I was back east, I'd kind of bring some cards. It was very much hustle culture. That led to some media interest. So I got interviewed by Sassy Magazine. I don't know if you remember Sassy Magazine.
Sassy Magazine was prominent in the early 1990s, known for its bold and irreverent approach to teen culture. Targeting teenage girls, it candidly tackled topics like feminism, sexuality, and alternative fashion, exploring issues beyond what was typically found in the mainstream teen magazines.
I even got interviewed by The Atlantic when they first came out, and they never published it.
Oh, bummer.
There was definitely a lot of media interest. So I had this idea. I went to Cobb's Comedy Club one night, a popular comedy club in San Francisco, and I approached the owner, his name was Tom Sawyer, and asked if he'd want to sell my cards there. And he actually loved the idea. So for a while, they put them up behind the ticket counter, and that way when people were waiting in line to be let in, they could look at the cards. And in exchange, I got into comedy shows for free, which was pretty cool.
And you get to say that you know Tom Sawyer.
That's right. Yeah. And that's kind of how I got to be friends with Dana Gould. I don't know if you know him, but he was a writer on The Simpsons. He was a producer on Stan vs. Evil. Really funny comedian, super sweet guy. Actually, Dana wrote You're Horribly, Horribly Old. I'll give him credit for that one.
Oh, so you gave him this big break.
Exactly. I really gave him his start in comedy. Every time he was in town, we'd hang out, and he was always interviewed on The Alex Bennett Show, which was a really popular radio show at the time. And he'd bring my cards and read them on air.
Oh, that's cool.
So
Nice.
it was a really fun time because I would go to the shows, hang out with Dana, got to meet other comedians who were around at that time, like Patton Oswalt, David Cross, Janine Garofalo, and Caroline Ray. But yeah, it was really kind of cool to hang out with them. They all knew I was like this weird greeting card girl. I was down in LA with my cards, trying to get them into stores. And I ran into a friend from college whose nickname was Skippy, by the way. He invited me to a party, was like, oh, show them your cards. So I showed them cards. And Mark Price, who played Skippy on Family Ties.
Wait, 2 Skippies at one party? No way.
Exactly. He was like kind of more interested that I knew Tom Sawyer and could get in at Cobb's Comedy Club. He was like, oh, can I drive you home? Like stuff. It didn't quite work out because I got my first royalty check around that time. So I went to Europe for a couple of weeks. By the time I got back, I started dating my husband. And then so when Mark called me again, I was like, yeah, that's right.
So who was this husband-to-be that caused Goldy to skip on Skippy? Turns out she met him at a copy shop where he was working on her cards.
Every time I went, there was one copy guy who I thought was kind of cute, and he was the only one that would ever get my order right. I ended up marrying him. So that's how we met.
That sounds like the beginning of a Wes Anderson movie.
He was copying our cards. One day, he actually started looking at them, what he was copying, and he's like, you have a very mordant sense of humor. I had to go and look up the word mordant.
He's saying words that a writer doesn't know. That's got to get you hot.
Yeah, he's not your average copy guy. But yeah, I was very popular. In fact, I started getting fans, which was weird. So I'd get fan mail. One woman wrote me these long letters like, oh, our friend Dana Gould gave me this card, and she'd go on about, which psychotropic drugs she was on. She sent me pictures of her liposuction. Worked for an advertising agency, so she sent me, some really pretty funny VHS tapes of old 50s PSAs. So I was like, oh, cool. So the next time Dana was in town, I was like, oh, your friend wrote me a really nice letter and sent me some stuff, and he just looked really guilty. So I guess she was one of his fans, and he just wanted to kind of be nice and sent her one of my cards. So it became very awkward. Now she was sending me stuff. And one night I went to Cobb's and I saw Dana, and she was there too. And she was like full on, dressed like a Wiccan, Wiccan dress.
A Wiccan is a follower of Wicca, a modern pagan-based religion that focuses on nature worship. Most Wiccans wear regular clothes in their daily lives, but some choose to wear special clothing like robes or tunics for rituals, or perhaps for comedy clubs.
And I think she was definitely eyeballing me. And, oh, you and Dana are actually like, I don't think she realized that Dana and I were kind of like friends. So, yeah, she stopped writing me after that. I think she...
She got a little jealous.
I think she did. One of my old writing gigs, I wrote a piece about a drag queen, cabaret singer named Pussy Tourette for Queer Weekly magazine. And I ended up becoming friends with one of the backup singers. And she was a lesbian call girl. And she was a member of a group of sex workers called Coyote, which stands for Call Off Your Old Tired Ethics. They have an arts and crafts fair every year. And she asked if I would design their poster in exchange for giving me a booth and I could sell my cards there. And so I had my table set up next to this person that was selling penis-shaped candles. It wasn't all like sex themed, but that was the person I was next to. And I sold out. Like, people just loved them. They were like the coolest people at that arts and crafts fair.
So a year prior, would East Coast Goldy ever have imagined that day?
No. But when I came out here and started doing freelance, my mantra was just say yes to everything, because you never know. So yeah, it was kind of like led me on some, wild adventures.
Was the penis candle story really what pushed it over the edge for your family to move to the West Coast?
We got to keep an eye on her, or we got to join in. One of the two.
Yeah, this sounds too fun to miss out on.
We had to keep coming out with more and more cards. We started with like 12, and every 6 months we'd have to come up with more and more new stuff to put out there. I think in the end we had like about 100 some odd cards.
Oh, wow.
But we came out with a line of low self-esteem cards, which was really fun. Things like, I know you're not right for me, but I can change. Things like that. So, which were just, in this tiny little font. So just like really like very low self-esteem. We had Shakespearean insults. That was a line. We had some less mean ones. Those didn't do very well. And we had a whole line of office cards, which were really weird too. My number was still the Yellow Pages. Remember those? I would get like random phone calls. People would just call me. Terrible, terrible ideas for cards. Like, I hope you get cancer. And I'm like, yeah, thanks. Try to get off the phone without, making them mad or whatever. It was weird. I didn't like being famous. I really was like, if this is what it means to be famous, I was like, no, happy behind the camera. People loved them. We were selling our cards left and right. Then a distributor reached out to us from New York, a distributor called Kaboom. And they said, hey, we want to print your cards and distribute them more broadly. And you get an advance on your royalties. So my partner were like, yes. So instead of kind of like waiting for the cards to sell, and there's not a high margin on greeting cards. So we're just like, yeah, give us the money. So we left our rep. We signed up with this distributor in New York, and they started printing our cards and distributing them across the country, and then in Europe a little bit, and then Canada. And we even translated some for Japanese, which I don't know how they translated. I have no idea. We got this big advance on our royalties, and then we'd come out with another set of cards and we get another advance. So we actually had like big chunks of money coming in, and that's when I went to Europe.
Did you finally go to Spain?
I did. I went to Spain by myself, and I was really proud of myself. I spoke Spanish the whole time, and we rented a car. I don't know how I did this without Google Translate, but it was pretty fun. But that's when things started kind of going a little weird. After a year, our distributor, the main person that we did business with, he died. I didn't know him that well, so it's okay. I don't mean to laugh. But the business went to another person who took over the business, and we kind of went on for another year. And we thought it was going pretty well, but then he won the New York State Lottery and just bailed. We looked at each other like, do we want to keep doing this?
That's another amazing coincidence.
Yeah, the universe was telling us something. And more people were going into this space now. So there were more like these weird cards coming out. So we figured it was a time to move on, and my partner really wanted to go to medical school.
So is he drawing human organs right now?
Yes. Yes, he is.
He really is. Okay.
He is, yeah.
Do you think you affected the greeting card market?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
We were written up in Greeting Card Magazine. What does that mean?
Well, I've got my copy right here.
Everybody reads that. No, I definitely think we had an impact because all of a sudden these things were selling, and I think other people were looking, or at least more open to selling these new types of cards. And we really didn't know what we were doing. I'm looking back on it now after, spending my career in marketing, and wow, we had something that people were really excited about, and all we were doing were greeting cards. There were so many other ways that we could have capitalized on it.
Rob, on the spot, come up with your best low self-esteem card idea.
Oh, I like this challenge.
Okay, how about another example that might help spur an idea?
I know when you said all those terrible things to me, it was just the beer talking.
No, sorry, Jake. I'm sure you've got something, so why don't you go ahead?
I had a few more seconds than you did to come up with one, and obviously it's my idea. But I came up with, please don't leave me. I'll kill myself. P.S. I hope you get cancer.
Can I hang up now? I think we kind of drew the line at hoping people die.
All right, that's going to wrap up episode 5. As usual, you could check out the YMIS podcast Instagram account for show-related pics. Your most interesting story is available on all podcast platforms, including YouTube. If you'd like to support the show, you can like, rate, review, share, and/or subscribe. Or you can visit our website, where you can also let us know that you'd like to tell your most interesting story. Just follow the link in the show description. Our email address is ymispodcast@gmail.com. Until next time, be interesting. Jake, anything on your side?
Craziest thing you saw in San Francisco during that time period?
Oh, I can't talk about that. I'm thinking of it, but I'm turning bright red. I'm going to blow my nose real quick. My nose is running.
Okay.
I'm going to go on mute.
We need that recording, actually.